Hi, Dana Sparks, broker of Maximum One Greater Atlanta Realtors, and this week's contract tip has to do with the changes to the 2019 GAR, Georgia Association of Realtors, contract forms. Please watch the video I did on just a general overview, just if you kind of want to get an overview. But today's video is on the changes to the brokerage engagements. So, first thing, as I mentioned in the overview video, is that that GAR did change all of the form numbers. So all of the form numbers, all of the brokerage engagements are now in the 100s. So the form will start with 100. So first, let's cover the changes to the exclusive seller listing agreement. And basically, a question came up and it got clarified. What happens to the term of the agreement if the transaction, if you go under contract and it closes, or if you go under contract and it fails to close? What happens to that time frame? So for example, let's say you, a buyer, you have a listing and you go under contract, but the closing date occurs after the expiration of the listing agreement. Is the listing agreement still intact or not? So GAR has added in paragraph B2, it says, if the property goes under contract prior to the expiration of the original listing agreement or any extension thereof. So this has nothing to do with the protection period, but if you are under an active listing agreement and you go under contract, but the closing date occurs outside of the term of the expiration of the listing agreement, then this agreement shall automatically extend till closing. So the listing agreement does stay intact through closing if you went under contract prior to closing and the closing date is after closing. Now, another issue. What happens if you go under contract while you're under an active listing agreement, and then that contract fails to close, that contract terminates? What happens to the time frame for the listing agreement? And previously it used to say that the time frame automatically extends for the number of days that the property was under contract. So you have a contract, it terminates, that time frame that you were under contract is automatically added on. Well, they have changed that a little bit. And now what it says is that the listing agreement shall extend for the number of days that the property was under contract if it failed to close. But if the broker, meaning you as the affiliated licensee and the broker of the broker, you have to send notice to the seller of the extension, and that notice of the extension must be sent before the actual expiration of the listing agreement. So it says, and it is in paragraph B2B, it's all under B2 under listing period. Extension, it says, if during the term of this agreement, seller and prospective buyer enter into a real estate sales contract which is not consummated for any reason whatsoever, then the original expiration date of this agreement may be extended by the number of days that the property was under contract by providing written notice of the same to the seller prior to the referenced ending date set forth herein. If the ending date is modified, then that amendment shall control. If no notice is given, then this agreement shall terminate and no longer be in force and effect. So you have the right as the broker / affiliated licensee to extend the listing agreement for the number of days that the property was under contract, but you must send notice to the seller of that extension for that reason. If you don't send that notice to the seller, then those additional days do not get added on. Dual agency disclosure, they just added changed the verbiage just a little bit. They added a whole section, and it just says, upon signing this brokerage engagement with dual agency disclosures contained herein, client's consent to dual agency is conclusively deemed to have been given and informed with accordance of the law. So you guys know per license law that dual agency is legal, but you must have the buyer's and seller's written consent. So this is just a further clarification that the buyer and the seller, when they sign this, they do consent to dual agency. All right. Then GAR has added additional protection for you, the broker and listing agent, regarding your duties with respect to a listing agreement. So under the paragraph C4B, where it talks about limits on brokers' authority and responsibility, they have completely changed it from 2018. So the 2019 version says that you as the seller acknowledges and agrees that broker shall have no duty to inspect property or advise buyer or seller on any matter relating to the property which could have been revealed through a survey, appraisal, title search, official Georgia wood infestation report, utility bill review, septic system inspection, well water test, tests for radon, asbestos, mold, and lead-based paint, inspection of the property by a licensed home inspector, construction expert, structural engineer, or environmental engineer, review of this agreement and transaction by an attorney, financial planner, mortgage consultant, or tax consultant, and consulting appropriate governmental officials to determine, among other things and without limitation, the zoning of the property, whether any condemnation action is pending or has been filed, other nearby governmental improvements that are planned. Seller acknowledges that broker does not perform or have expertise in any of the above tests, inspections, and reviews, or in any matters handled by the professionals referenced above. Seller should seek independent expert advice regarding any matter of concern to the seller relative to the property in this agreement. Seller acknowledges that broker shall not be responsible to monitor or supervise any portion of any construction or repairs to the property, and that such tasks fall outside of the scope of real estate brokerage services. So again, a lot more verbiage about protection for you as the agent, that the buyer and the seller, in this case, the seller, because it's a listing agreement, is responsible for the oversight and consultation with experts on any of those matters. They also added another new paragraph in the listing agreement about assignability. Now, this has nothing to do with assigning a purchase and sale agreement. This has to do with assigning the listing agreement if a brokerage gets bought out or merges or acquired by another firm. So again, this isn't a purchase and sale contract in and of itself. This is the actual listing agreement going with another firm if the current real estate brokerage goes out of business for whatever reason. And that is a new paragraph, paragraph CH under assignability, and it states that as part of a sale of all or substantially all of the assets of a broker to another brokerage firm, the seller consents to this agreement being assigned by the broker to the other brokerage firm. In such event, the assignee, upon consenting to the assignment, shall, 1, thereafter be responsible for performing all of the duties and responsibilities of the assignor under this agreement, and 2, have all of the rights of the assignor, including the right to receive commissions under this agreement. Again, changes to the cyber fraud paragraph, and it has been included. And then for the brochures and exhibits, this is also a universal change. They've now been all alphabetized, and they have added that new exhibit form. Did I tell you all about this? There is a new exhibit called CB08 EPA Home Buyer and Seller's Guide to Radon. It is a pamphlet from the EPA, so they have added that. And the other change they have added in the exhibits is where it talks about legal description. It has an exhibit as a separate exhibit with the legal exhibit. It does reference F807, and now it says other, in case you as a listing agent, you want to attach a copy of the seller's warranty deed or some other form of the legal description, not legal exhibit. And they have also, in the listing agreement, made it a little bit easier to understand. They have separated out the actual exhibits as opposed to the brochure. So they've just separated those out. Again, it's just a little bit clearer to understand and see what you're doing in that agreement. Now, just a little bit about the changes to the buyer brokerage agreement. Basically, they have added verbiage in there. What happens if you, as a selling agent, selling broker, get offered a bonus? So they have added that under the commission paragraph, which is commission paragraph B5A. And basically, it states it had already talked about broker's entitlement to commission, when the broker is entitled to commission for working with a buyer under a buyer brokerage agreement. And they added a sentence that says, there may be properties shown to a buyer by a broker where a bonus is being offered to the broker for finding a buyer to purchase the property. Buyer consents to broker receiving such bonus in addition to the commission referenced herein. So they just spelled that out just a little bit. Then also under the commission paragraph where it talks about buyer's default, they just added a sentence that says, notwithstanding any provision to the contrary herein, as a phrase that preferences the rest of it, just to account for any special stipulations or concessions that the broker and the buyer have already made regarding commission. They also changed the limit to the broker's authority and responsibilities. All of those additional protections have been added as they did with the listing agreements, and cyber fraud paragraph has been added. Again, the brochures have been alphabetized, and they added that new GAR brochure, the radon brochure, EPA Home Buyers and Sellers Guide to Radon pamphlet. And that's about it. So not a whole lot of changes, just again, some clarification and some additional protection for you as an agent. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please stay tuned for additional videos on the changes to the other forms that I will cover in depth. And again, please take a class that we are offering. We are hosting the class, and it is offered through the school, Georgia Real Estate Academy. Thank you guys so much for watching. Dana Sparks, broker of Maximum One Greater Atlanta Realtors, satisfying your needs with service, innovation, and education.